Yeah, you feel that? That's what we call nostalgia. Bleach is the definition of peak fiction. Ichigo has a lot of interesting things about him. His design, his unique ability to shatter fate, his Riz. Like seriously, this guy's Riz needs to be studied. But me personally, I think his most interesting trait is his savior complex. Ichigo has this unyielding desire to always save someone, and this is present in the very first chapter of the manga. Even before his fateful encounter with Rukia. Now, before I unpack all of Ichigo's trauma and talk about why he has developed a savior complex, let me explain to you what a savior complex is. In psychology, a savior complex is an attitude and demeanor in which a person believes they are responsible for assisting other people. A person with a savior complex will often experience empathetic episodes and commit to impulsive decisions. Holy shit, that sounds exactly like Ichigo. Ichigo has this impulsive nature to protect. And at first it seems like this is just only extended to his family, but as the story goes on, we see this is not the case. Ichigo cannot leave someone alone if they need help, even if on the surface it appears his help is just not needed. One of the first times we see this is in episode 1 when Ichigo scares off some skateboarders from the dead girl's gravesite. One could make a good Samaritan argument and say that Ichigo had the responsibility to intervene. Since he has the power to actually see the ghost, he has the moral obligation to interfere with the ghost's problems. And to this I would say you're right. If Ichigo could, then he should intervene. But this doesn't really go against the point though. A savior complex isn't necessarily bad, and it's not necessarily good. And the common use of the word is more of a neutral term than anything. Ichigo's savior complex only escalates to a new high after he receives his Shikigami powers. He takes on Rukia's position as a Soul Reaper in Karakura Town. Now before you fucking nerds say it, yes, I know. When Rukia transferred Ichigo her powers, Ichigo took almost nearly all of it. So once again, you could make the argument that Ichigo has a moral responsibility to fight Hollows now, seeing that he is the sole reason that Karakura Town is deprived of a Soul Reaper. Which once again, I would agree to. The problem is, there was little to no fucking resistance at all with this. Ichigo barely gives any thought to fighting demonic creatures for as far as he knows the rest of his fucking life. What I find interesting about Ichigo taking Rukia's role as a Soul Reaper is that there's no real guilt. On the surface, you would think Ichigo would feel bad because, like I said earlier, he deprived Karakura Town of a Soul Reaper. Karakura Town is now left defenseless with no protection, so it's only understandable that Ichigo would want to take up the role and do that himself. But Ichigo never states that this is one of his motives, nor is that notion really touched upon. He just kind of accepts it and goes along with it as if it's in his nature. And his savior complex only reaches a new fucking level once the Soul Society arc happens. Now, interestingly enough, I don't really care about Ichigo's need to save Rukia. This is actually quite understandable. He developed a bond with this character. It's only natural that he would want to go save her when he knows her life is in peril. I don't think that warrants any discussion. What I do want to talk about is the end of the arc. Now, at the end of the arc, it's revealed that Aizen is the mastermind behind all this and he is a traitor. In response to this, there is a call to all members of the Soul Society and even Ichigo and his friends. Now keep in mind, at this point, Ichigo's mission was complete. As far as he knows, Rukia was saved, her execution was stayed off, even Byakuya was defeated. Ichigo has no fucking relationship with anyone in the Soul Society. To him, this is quite literally another planet with his own custom and culture. That means nothing to him, but he still answers the call anyway. He's fighting Aizen in his Bankai like he's trying to protect his home fucking town. If this is not a clear-cut example of a savior complex, I don't know what is. Now remember the definition that I read to you earlier. It brought up that one aspect of a savior's complex is impulsive decision making. Now, just like the point I made earlier with Rukia, Orihime is Ichigo's friend and hot big titty lover. It's understandable that he would want to go save her. I mean, I would too. Look at her. But the impulsive decision comes at the very beginning of the arc when he decides to completely infiltrate Hueco Mundo on his own without asking any of his friends or verifying that he's going to gain assistance from the Soul Society. This is a crazy decision. He is literally trying to be a one-man army. His friends literally have to go to him before he makes a stupid decision and gets himself killed. Now, I personally believe that this need to save people obviously comes from the failure to save his mom. Like I said earlier, Ichigo has always wanted to protect his family even as a young kid. So when his mother died at the hands of the Grand Fisher. It impacted him heavily because it made it feel like he failed at his one and only job. With that in mind, it makes so much sense. He would want to protect anybody and everybody. Once he comes into the possession of Shikigami powers, it would be a failure on my part not to note that Ichigo has always displayed this characteristic. It's fundamentally an aspect of his character. Because of his savior complex, Ichigo is indeed a peak character. You really should subscribe and hit the like button.